What's happening, gang? It's your boy Retro back again with another reaction video. Yeah. Today we got another huge update. Now you guys can probably already tell that it is going down. Just by that title alone, you guys are definitely gonna want to check this one out. So we got that Somalian representative Ilhan Omar now in a full-blown panic after learning that the heat is now on her following the discovery of widespread Somalian fraud throughout her state of Minnesota, guys. And I'm excited to get into this one, so we're not straight into it. All I ask that you guys please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's hop straight into it, folks. Check this one out.
Do we have any individuals from Somalia in the group? Please raise your hand. That's for Minnesota, you know. That's called the Great Big Minnesota Scam with one of the dumbest governors ever in history. I love this Ilhan Omar, whatever the hell her name is, with the little turban. I love her. She comes in, does nothing but she's always complaining. She comes from her country where, I mean, it's considered about the worst country in the world, right? They have no military, they have no nothing, they have no parliament. They don't know what the hell the word parliament means. They have nothing, they have no police. They police themselves. They kill each other all the time. I love it. She comes to our country, and she's always complaining about the Constitution allows me to do this. We ought to get her the hell out. She married her brother in order to get in, right? She married her brother. Can you imagine if Donald Trump married his sister? Beautiful. She's a beautiful person. If I married my sister to get my citizenship, do you think I'd last for about 2 hours, or would it be something less than that? She married her brother to get in, therefore she's here illegally. She should get the hell out, throw her the hell out. She does nothing but complain. So now, and we have our savior in this room. He is in charge of the investigation of Somalia and the billions of dollars they have robbed from Minnesota, right? I hope you do your job. I hope you're not one of these Republicans where something comes up and they don't do what they should do because they're nicer people. You know, they're much nicer people than the Democrats, but Scott's actually not a nice person at all. So, Scott, you're in charge of that investigation? Okay, I'm not interfering at all. I'm just saying, please do a good job, honest and fair. Right? Honest and fair. Oh, if he's honest and fair, you know what he's going to find? It's great. I'd love to have that job. I may switch jobs with you. I'd love to have that job. They're to get him the hell out of here. They hate our country. And she hates our country, and her friends hate our country, and AOC hates our country. They all do.
All right, folks, and as usual, President Donald Trump not sparing any of his words and not letting this whole thing go when it comes to Ilhan Omar and the widespread Somalian fraud that's been discovered in her state of Minnesota. Trump says it's time to hold these criminals accountable. If they hate this country so much, it's time for them to get sent back to the country that they so desperately love. But Ilhan Omar, she sees this whole thing differently, and she's now blaming it all on white women and not the Somalian fraudsters.
Because, as you know, one of the initial defenses by the organization at the heart of the fraud, Feeding Our Future, was to claim the probe was due to racism. Do you think that this was all about negligence, or that it was like political fear of alienating the Somali community?
So you have to remember that the woman who led the program is a Caucasian woman. And that was her way of making sure that this would continue to happen by using whatever rhetoric that was available to her. We do know that when the money was stopped, they did sue. The AG, Attorney General Keith Ellison, defended the department in that lawsuit. It was a judge that said it should continue, that money should continue to go out. And so this wasn't something that people were not looking at. There was always those alarms, and we will continue to understand where things might have gone wrong as these investigations continue and as these fraudsters are prosecuted and sent to jail.
And in typical Democratic fashion, Ilhan Omar, that Somalian rep, quick to pull out that race card and blame an entire race, all white women, for her failures, the criminal activity that she allowed underneath her nose, because it's way easier to blame an entire race than it is for her to take accountability for her blatant fraud and criminal activity. But I don't think that alibi is going to work here, because we've got new reports developing of yet another scandal of Ilhan Omar's coming to light. This time it's ballot harvesting fraud. Turns out that's how she got into power as a representative of Minnesota.
Yeah, this time the investigative activist group has exposed alleged ballot harvesting by supporters of Democrat Representative Ilhan Omar and her allies in Minnesota. Project Veritas claims paid workers have been illegally gathering absentee ballots from elderly Somali immigrants, and new video footage showing one operative bragging about collecting hundreds of ballots. Watch this.
Who is the one filling out the absentee ballots? People who work with, like Ilhan Omar and other candidates who work for them. They came to us to our apartments. They tell us that this year you're going to vote right now.
Where do they pay the money?
The minute we sign the thing, the election, that's where you get paid.
So I guess we can add ballot harvesting fraud to the list of criminal offenses of Ilhan Omar, that Somalian representative of Minnesota. And the numbers don't lie here. You just simply have to follow the money. You'll see exactly who's guilty here. We got this report breaking on Ilhan Omar going from having right around $65,000 in her net worth to $30 million in just 3 years. I mean, that right there, simple math shows you on a congressional salary, that's almost impossible. What kind of investments is she making? It just doesn't make sense whatsoever, which right there points to Ilhan Omar being implicated in this widespread Somalian fraud. That's how she came up. And now we got President Donald Trump coming out in his latest interview hinting at incoming prosecutions for these crooks and Somalian fraudsters. It's going down.
I want to see people that contribute. I don't want to see Somalia. I don't want to see a woman that, marries her brother to get in and then becomes a congressman, does nothing but complain. All she does is complain, 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 and yet her country's a mess. It's one of the worst in the world. Let her go back, fix up her own country. Somalia, yeah, and I was right about it. I started complaining about Somalia long before the scandal. The horrible things they're doing to Minnesota, it's incredible. They have an incompetent governor there, too. The Democrats are running some bad ships.
Now, folks, take that as you will, but I'm going to take that as a hint from our president that it's not just going to be these Somalian fraudsters getting sent back and deported to their home country, but that Somalian representative Ilhan Omar will be a part of them getting sent back to her home country. I mean, we see exactly how much she despises our country, but yet she won't go back to the country that she so-called loves so much. And following this sit down with President Donald Trump, we had our border czar Tom Homan later confirming that investigations by HSI are underway and justice will be served when it comes to these Somalian fraudsters. All of them will be held accountable. I love to see that.
Trump mentioning the Daily Mail reporting from 2020 that Ilhan Omar married her brother to get into the country. It's a story that has never been successfully refuted, even though it's now a 5-year-old story. That's clearly a deportable offense. Is there an investigation into that?
I just got advised by a fraud investigator the other day on that. I asked the question, who reviewed the file, and says, there was immigration fraud involved. The statute of limitation became an issue in the last 4 years when this was first brought up. Who was president? Who ran DOJ? So pulling the records now, pulling the files, and we're looking at, but this fraud investigator, who I know personally, one of the best fraud investigators in HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, said there's no doubt he reviewed the file. So I'm running that down this week, matter of fact, and we'll see.
Uh-oh, folks. Things are looking everything but up for Ilhan Omar. This one definitely spells disasters. We got Borders Czar Tom Homan coming out in an interview, keying us in on some details that the investigation is underway by HSI's leading fraud investigator, Ilhan Omar. You better watch out because they're going to get to the bottom of this. Might as well come clean while you're ahead. But Ilhan Omar, she doesn't have it in her. She still believes that she's going to be shielded by the First Amendment, as a matter of fact. Just check her out.
Not only is the First Amendment under threat, but there's also just a lack of understanding that I am seeing with the American public on what those freedoms actually look like. You'll have people who say you shouldn't have a Muslim in Congress. I have First Amendment protection to practice whatever religion I want. Two, people will say, you advocated for the likes of Tucker to get off TV. Yes, with advertisers. But when you have the government itself saying, I'm not going to renew your license unless you get this man off the air, that is a violation of someone's First Amendment right.
That's what the First Amendment was written for.
Yes.
It's the government.
Yes, and I think that's the part that people don't understand. It's the government, right? People were upset with the likes of Ted Cruz when they, tried to explain. And that is my worry, is that the public is losing an understanding of these liberties and freedoms.
Boy, do I have some bad news for that Ilhan Omar. I hate to have to break it to you and be the bearer of bad news, but ballot harvesting fraud and immigration fraud are both not protected underneath the First Amendment. You're definitely in for a world of trouble. Now, we're looking over at Minnesota again, and we can see that this right now is the blind leading the blind, as we now have the mayor or a mayor in the state of Minnesota telling Somali illegals not to worry about ICE because she's got them covered. They're not going to take them away.
My St. Louis Park residents, and to really anybody who lives in the Twin Cities area, as we're getting reports that ICE is coming, that they're being deployed, know this, that St. Louis Park Police Department does not enforce immigration laws. They have not. It has been a long-standing policy for us.
And it seems like these folks just want your boy Retro to be the bearer of bad news, but I gotta break it to you as well, that the mayor of St. Louis Park in Minnesota, you're not going to stop ICE enforcement in your area or in the state of Minnesota. I'm gonna tell you right now, your local law enforcement PD, they don't have to cooperate or join force with ICE for them to get their operation complete. It's getting done. These folks are getting sent back whether you like it or you don't. Now, I want to flip over to Stephen Miller's quote. He said something that I found very interesting. He said, if Somalis cannot make Somalia successful, why do they believe that they could do better here in the United States of America? It just doesn't make sense. A very good question to be asking yourself.
During the civil rights era, and this is the simplest way I can put it, there was a thought in effect, if you go back and you can read the transcripts of the debate at the time, of applying civil rights to immigration policy for the globe, and to create a civil right for people from every part of the world to come to America in ever-growing numbers. And so a system that for years, as you mentioned, had been tightly restricted, suddenly established this global ability of people in every part of the world to come to America, to bring their families to America, and then eventually empty out their entire towns and their entire villages to the United States of America. And so what you saw between 1965 and today was the single largest experiment on a society, on a civilization that had ever been conducted in human history. Not just the 76 million immigrants that were brought in, largely from the third world, but their descendants too. So you see with a lot of these immigrant groups, not only is the first generation unsuccessful, again, Somalia is a clear example here, not only is the first generation unsuccessful, but you see persistent issues in every subsequent generation. So you see consistent high rates of welfare use, consistent high rates of criminal activity, consistent failures to assimilate. But this shouldn't be a surprise, Will. It's just common sense. If Somalians cannot make Somalia successful, why would we think that the track record would be any different in the United States?
I've quickly grown to appreciate the wisdom of Stephen Miller because he is usually spot on. He's not beating around the bush, a straight shooter, always able to explain the situation at hand in the most simple manner. I mean, just take a look at Somalia. a very failed country. You think the descendants of this failed country can come over to our successful country and somehow be in a leadership and lead us to continue to be great? It's just not possible. These folks have those same principles and values instilled in them since birth, and that's why we're getting what we're seeing over in the state of Minnesota. Now, folks, I want to end this one on a good note with some news coming from Scott Bessent as he exposes Ilhan Omar yet once again.
The president told you, though, this week to look into Somalis who, quote, ripped off that state for billions of dollars. He said they contribute nothing. What exactly are you investigating?
Well, Margaret, to be clear, the initial fraud that was discovered by the IRS, for which I'm the acting commissioner, is discovered by IRS Criminal Investigations Unit. This was not an endogenous thing that the state of Minnesota decided we had to go in and clean up the mess for them, and this is part of the continued cleanup. A lot of money has been transferred from the individuals who committed this fraud, including those who donated to the governor, donated to Representative Omar, and donated to A.G. Ellison, but they've been transferred to something called MBSs. And those are
mortgage-backed security. What do you mean?
Sorry.
Transferred to what?
These are money the Bureau services, and they are wire transfer organizations that are outside the regulated banking system, and that money has gone overseas. And we are tracking that both to the Middle East and to Somalia to see what the uses of that have been.
Okay, but you have no evidence of that money being used to fuel terrorism at this point, which is what some conservative writers are alleging.
That's why it's an investigation. We started it last week. We'll see where it goes. But I can tell you that, it's terrible. Representative Omar tried to downplay it, said, oh, it was very, it was very tough to know how this money should be used. Yeah. She was gaslighting the American people.
Well, we'll talk to her.
Yeah, but when you come to this country, you got to learn which side of the road to drive on. You got to learn to stop at stop signs, and you got to learn not to defraud the American people.
Yo, there we have it, guys. Oh my goodness! You know that old saying, when it rains, it pours. Well, it's surely pouring down on that smiling Representative Ilhan Omar. She is now wrapped up in scandal. All of her dirty laundry now being aired out there because she chose to come out here and attempt to protect these illegal Somalis that attempted to defraud America's systems and send all this money back to their home country. We cannot continue to allow this. We must draw that line in the sand somewhere and have a starting point to say, hey, this bad actor was held accountable. They're now serving time. They've now been penalized for, deported, sent home, jailed. I don't care what it is. It's time to get moving on it. I'm tired of hearing all these investigations. I'm with you guys now. I see it in the comments nonstop. You guys are like, it's investigation after investigation to no one ever being a prosecutor held accountable. It's about time. Put your foot down. Hopefully the Trump administration is taking this thing seriously, which it does sound like they are. You hear words coming from our very own President Donald Trump, where the way he's speaking, I can tell you right now, there's definitely some things going on behind the scenes. We also had words from Bordazar Tom Mahone. It looks like their HSI is acting on it. They got an investigation underway. Scott Bessent, he's hinting at Ilhan Omar's connection, her trying to bury this whole thing alongside the governor of her state, Tim Walz. So it's only a matter of time before we start seeing these bad actors finally held accountable, guys. But definitely hop in that comment section. Comments are open, and I'm excited to hear what you guys are thinking about this one today. Also, make sure you guys please, before you go, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you'd enjoy more content like this, catch you guys on the next one. We